Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello everyone. Welcome back to the Daily Wolves podcast, and welcome back to Global Sports Podcast Network, which gives you access to podcasts from every club every day, which is pretty fantastic. My name's Nathan. I'm your host for today, and I'm joined by the fantastic Chris and Will. Chris, how are we doing today?
I'm good. It's good to see you again, Nathan. Hey, everyone.
It's good to see you too, guys. It's been a while. Will, how are you keeping?
Yeah, all good. Even better now that, as you've both just mentioned, you know, the trio is reunited.
The trio of dreams, the Three Musketeers. I'm trying to think of other trios. Hotter, Traore, Jimenez. Leave it at that. We haven't got three at the minute that we're too in love with, but obviously you guys gave us an immediate reaction, nice and fresh off the back of the away defeat to Liverpool on Sunday. Now that you've had a little bit more time to sort of, I understand, Chris, you've rewatched the game, and Will, you might have been able to rewatch some of the clips that we spoke about, or that you guys spoke about, rather. Chris, do you have any further thoughts or different thoughts on what your initial reactions were from that fixture?
I mean, in terms of the overall performance, I think we played actually pretty well, better than some people even, I think, giving us. I think some people are thinking we didn't play very well and just saying the second half. I think the first half was okay. I think we weren't actually that bad. Vitor just made the right choices to kind of up the game in the second half. I think overall, I think we actually played pretty well that game, and to deny Liverpool chances in the second half and be pushing for an equaliser. I think it was pretty solid outside of the couple of mistakes. But overall, the biggest thing that we touched on yesterday a few times, the biggest thing in rewatching it again was just the fact that no, I wasn't just being, I don't think, biased. The officiating was just very poor. I mean, the amount of one-sided decisions, the amount of times that Wolves players got yellow cards or free kicks against them for the most minuscule thing, and then the Liverpool players could do the same thing, or worse, 4 or 5 times and not have anything happen, and then look frustrated like they're overprivileged for, the slightest call that was given against them. It was just ridiculous.
Yeah, frustrating one, isn't it? I think my initial thoughts were probably similar, and I always try and hold myself back and think probably being biased here, but having watched some of the bits back again, clips that are coming through social media and stuff, it's so frustrating when there's no consistency, and it's something that we keep banging on about, but Simon Hooper was so inconsistent, but towards one team, which just adds to the fury of it. I mean, I know there's big decisions they get wrong, and we've been on the back end of a few bad ones over the last couple of seasons, but I don't know what you think about this, Will, but it just feels like we finally put together a decent performance, and maybe on another day where we kind of have the rub of the green, we come away with a point.
Yeah, but I think it just comes with the territory, quite literally. The whole sort of notion of the officials being not necessarily against us, as in against Wolves. I'm quite reluctant to buy into the whole idea of it being corrupt in that sense, but there's definitely a subconscious bias towards the top 6, and especially Liverpool, and I can't stand it. It's so frustrating when, Chris, as you mentioned, we put in a good shift. We played well, and it's already a difficult place to go to, and it's just sort of like, you just expect this nonsense. That's I think is the most annoying part of it. You just it's going to happen. Those 50-50 calls are always going to go against you, no matter what it is. And it's just annoying. It's just really annoying. And what I have noticed since we recorded is the fact that it's not just us. It's not just Wolves fans who noticed it. Obviously, being on a Sunday at 2:00, it was televised for everyone to see, and I've actually seen quite a lot of neutral fans, sort of, saying how hard done by we were in terms of those yellow cards going against us, or not going against Liverpool and so on. So it's there for everyone to see, but it just annoys me how it's like it's taken as read. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, definitely, and it's just that consistency. The thing that really gets me all the time is the fact that they have so many eyes on these decisions nowadays. There's just so much information there. I don't quite understand how. I don't know, when you get to that second half, at half time, do the refs have a team talk and kind of go, right, lads, we've actually got quite a few wrong here. Not that you want to be now overcompensating, but just kind of, I don't know, some sort of objective assessment. We've got so many cameras viewing all sorts of different angles on so many different things. And I know you guys mentioned it talking about the game in the previous episode, but the Hotter one where he's clearly dived for a penalty. You've had all that time to make that decision, then it's clear and obvious that it's a dive. And if it's clear and obvious, and you've got VAR there to check that things are clear and obvious, then make sure that the punishment is clear and obvious as well, which it would be to anyone watching that it's a dive, therefore it's a yellow card.
Yeah.
So I think there's a few bits like that are just like, it's just, I guess, when you compound them one after the other and you see it throughout 90 minutes, you then think, gosh, that was a terrible performance. Whereas each individual little mistake, you probably go, right, okay, that happens in every Premier League game. It's just, I guess, the amount that there were.
I think because we talk about consistency is the key, and you just know that there's many of those decisions that if they happened at one end of the pitch, they don't happen at the other. And when I was rewatching it today, because the coverage I watched at the weekend was different to what I watched today. I watched back on Wolves TV with the Mikey Burrows and Andy Thompson, all that team. And so it was interesting to hear that, even, them. I know that they're like us, they're fans and lovers of Wolves. And so, but it's interesting to hear them comment on the lead up to the penalty that was given where Diaz goes down, that there was not even a look at the nudge in Aga's back in the build up to that from Diaz, because Aga's going to intercept that ball and there's a slight nudge in his back. Now it's marginal, but you know that if that's at the other end of the pitch at Anfield, and that's a Wolves, that's Gedge partially shoving someone in the back as he's chasing the ball, it's gonna not be given because they'll say that he's interfered with the defender, and you just know it. And and we can say this almost in an unbiased way because you've only got to look back at the history of all the decisions we've had at Anfield, the way it goes. I mean, the FA Cup one with Totti is the cream of the crop, surely.
Yeah, that's the
but
worst.
all of that stuff, you can go back as far as you want, and there's a reason. It adds to all the reasons we haven't won there is so often, because you just see it again and again. It's so one-sided, and it, like you say, it's not necessarily a Wolves thing. It's a big team thing. And the crowd is so close, that huge crowd on top of them reacting to everything. And I've refereed in other sports that don't have cameras, and it isn't even, we're not with as big a crowd as that, but with a few thousand people watching, and it takes a strong mind sometimes to shut all of that noise out and be focused. Like, you almost have to, you put yourself in your own little world and just block out all the sound. You have to just be focused on the moment and ignore all of that. And I can only imagine how it feels at a higher level with 40,000 people on top.
No, absolutely. I think that everyone can appreciate the difficulty and the difficult job that referees have. I think just going back to the same point is they have someone in their ear for the whole game. They have constant feedback with the linesmen that also have a different angle on the pitch. It's not like it's just individual and just all on them, which I think historically, if you go back, 20, 30, 40 years, it did feel like sort of the refs are on their own in the middle there, and they didn't even have necessarily comms with the linesman. But on that one with where Aga gets shoved and then, leads to the pen, it's just the softness of the pen and the contact of that is just as soft as the shove in the back. And it's just, I don't know, when I see it from that perspective, I'm thinking what, it just doesn't add up, and I know they've got this thing with not going back so far in the play, but that, that we're talking a second between the two actions. It just, I don't know, it just fuels the frustration, I guess. But we're going to end up down a big rabbit hole here. And before I move this topic, voice getting away from me, before I move the topic of conversation onto our forward line, because I want to chat about Munetsi and whether or not he's a number 9. I just want to give everyone a chance to hear from our partners.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN 2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
Lovely stuff. Right, so I want to get my thoughts when listening back to you guys chatting about Minetsi and how Vitor's kind of brought him in as this makeshift number 9, false 9, whatever we want to call it, making runs in behind. And the main thing that I was picking up from you guys in the previous episode was that, well, if he could finish and could stay on side, he might be all right. Two things that we definitely would need in a striker. So I have to say, watching him against Blackburn, and I know it's Blackburn, but I thought he was doing the right things and making the right runs, and people called him I saw on Twitter someone say he's like the new Dave Edwards almost, making them sort of late runs into the box and stuff. And I don't mind that at all. But I did think watching the game, it's so clear to me that he's not a centre forward.
No.
And look, I know I've had some horrible takes on here, and I've got things so wrong sometimes, and then they've gone and prove us otherwise. But in this case, it just, I don't know, it just seems like he's not a number 9, is he? Will, like he's.
Yeah, no, I think the phrase "square pegs and round holes" comes to mind. I think he's just, unfortunately for him, maybe because people will perhaps judge him unfairly, a bit like perhaps when Bellegarde was spending so much time out wide, when we can now see that's clearly not his game. I just think, unfortunately for him, he's just the only sort of real option that we have. I mean, Chris, I know you and I spoke about Carlos Forbes there, a player who was, about to return back to Ajax from his loan spell in January. But aside from that, there are literally no other options, really. So, yeah, I don't get it. But just the more I look at it from that point of view, the more I look at our squad, I think, there's so many areas where we are just below par for where you need to be to climb higher in the Premier League, and that's certainly one of them. But yeah.
I will say, I like the look of him. He definitely gives me something different. You can see the athleticism, and again, watching the game back today, there was moments where there was one point in the second half, he's like the furthest guy forward. Liverpool go on the break, and within moments, he's one of the first guys back. Like he's, the speed from box to box is definitely a benefit.
Insane,
undoubtedly, he was charging back to get there. And he, as we mentioned, he's in the right places. I mean, you can't argue that he's had all these opportunities, because he is making good runs, like intelligent, even at least when he stays on side. But even then, you can see the intention. You can see when he's drifting offside that he's doing the right things. It is just a lack of finishing ability at the moment. He's only had an hour of play in total with us. So again, not that much, and one of them was against Liverpool. So, and even then, he could have had the equalising goal, because that 80-something minute moment when Doyle puts a beautiful ball in, because it was a great piece of play, and literally it's taken off his foot, and he's like a yard out. So he's had moments, and I like what I see overall. And I don't know if you agree, Nathan, whether there's an element. I like to be the devil's advocate. I mentioned yesterday, are we seeing more of him in this position, especially while Larson is out and Hwang is out and all these injuries? Like, do you reckon there's an addition to that, or do you think this is just like a plan B?
I think it's just a plan B. I think there's a couple of things we need to obviously consider as well. Is that the bloke's just been thrown into Premier League football. You know, like that is it's a big step up for some of the biggest players in Europe. Really struggle with it. So, you know, we're cutting some slack on that front. Clearly being played out of position to where he's played previously. You know, he's been a more consistent number 8, even number 6 at times, and he fits the physical attributes of Mario Lemina, doesn't he? He's got that kind of box to box, very, very physical, fairly quick, really strong on the ball. So there's certain bits there where you can see why he's been brought in. You can see that there's a bit of potential, and there's definitely stuff to work with. I think, he obviously timing of the runs and stuff with the speed of the game, he's not getting it quite right. But maybe Vitor has seen something, because I have to say, as you said, Chris, you can see what he's trying to do. Yes, he might be offside and he might miss the one-on-one, but that little bit of play when he had his one-on-one against Liverpool weekend, and it was flicked through from Bellegarde, I think it was. He flicked it through in the midfield. When that first ball gets played and Munetsi isn't that first receiver, he's already on his bike. And I remember seeing a couple of different angles on that, and I thought that's a good sign that, you know, there's that, I don't know, there's a bit of cohesion and something building there. So I think there's some positives going forwards. But I wanted to actually completely divert our thoughts and chat towards another area of the pitch, actually. And it's something that we've not actually mentioned over the last couple of weeks since January deadline has obviously come across. We've had to rename our eligible players and our squad for the rest of the season. And in that squad list, Craig Dawson wasn't included. And I think that's a fairly big statement from Vitor. I know it kind of, we've all seen it on social media and stuff. It's quite a big statement, and he came out very, very frankly and sort of talking about how there was no need for him, which, you know, it's made it quite clear. Will, I wanted to get your thoughts on it, and do you think it's a good thing?
To be honest, I'm actually just somewhat indifferent on it. Of course, I think, you know, Dawson has been great for us. You know, a true old-fashioned centre-half of the highest quality. You know, we've seen him pocket Haaland, we've seen him smash goals, and we've seen him put his body on the line to help our football club, and that is what you want from your centre back. But we do have to remember, he has been poor when he has played this season. I don't think there's any shying away from that. And, you know, so much as he's got a lot of credit in the bank, unfortunately, that's football. If a manager comes in and the player's not in his plans, that's just the way it works sometimes. And I'd rather a manager who is frank and to the point and doesn't mince his words and, you know, sort of makes these bold decisions, rightly or wrongly so. You know, I appreciate Pereira's standpoint on it. If a player's not involved or not in your plans, obviously he sees more than we do, then I don't really think there can be too many complaints. I just think, that aside, it is obviously a shame because, you know, he has been very good for us.
Yeah, for whatever people think of Gary O'Neill now, there's a couple of things when you think back that obviously have carried across at least two managers, because like Forbes, not given any time virtually under both managers, not considered worthy.
Yeah.
And Dawson thrown in a few times that again this season under O'Neill, but very quickly often dropped back to the bench because again just not at where he was the last couple of seasons. So it's obviously something that is consistent, not just, you know, this is not just one manager's eyes as well, but Vitor's just done it even more strongly because again there's more defender choices now. I mean, O'Neill didn't have the extra defenders to drop him further than the bench, but if he had, it might have happened. This kind of thing might have even happened sooner, because now Pereira's got Aga come in ahead of him. He's now got Giga. Bueno's jumped ahead of him in the pecking order. Doherty's ahead of him in the pecking order. I mean, he's so far down the list. Yeah. And obviously two of those people weren't even here before under O'Neill, and Doc was not considered a centre-back at all under O'Neill. So that, you know, I just think it's clearly that what I'm trying to say, I think, is it's not just one person's eyes, and if that's consistent across the board, clearly ever since he's had that groin injury end of last season, he's struggled to get back his fitness, I guess. So his speed has definitely seems to have gone. He's 34, and it just seems like maybe age as Father Time catches up with everyone, and he's in this, at least in this formation that we are playing, where we talk about, I mean, the centre backs at the weekend were high up the pitch against Liverpool. And it's the speed of the likes of Agger and Totti, and I mean Semedo's pretty quick as well. All those people are pretty sharp at getting back. Dawson can't do that.
Yeah, no, definitely not. I think I echo it. Like, it is a bit of a. I do have a soft spot for him. I like his style of defending. I loved how good he was for us in moments of need. But Vitor Pereira, I mean, coming in, he came in with a reputation of being this stern manager who's going to make tough calls at times, and maybe arguably Gary O'Neill should have made a tougher call on Craig Dawson. But Pereira's obviously made that selection, and similar to us here actually at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we also spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. We wanted to get it right, and Zencastr came out the clear winner with 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more. I'm pretty happy with that smooth transition there.
Yeah, that was expertly done, Nathan.
That was pro. But we'll just so yeah, just on the Dawson thing. But yeah, so right now he's not got a squad number, but he's not even training with the team, and it looks like they're talking about the club are talking with him about arranging to nullify the contract and release him. The interesting thing is they didn't choose to do it during the transfer window, at which point he could have gone on a free to another club. Because it's after the transfer window, if he goes now, he can't sign with another English club this season. So he would only be able to sign for someone abroad. So they waited intentionally.
It's an interesting one, because it almost, he screams championship now. Like a championship club, it'd be gold dust for them. I mean, I know he's not got his pace, but if Danny Barth can do it, then I think he'd be all right. But again, I'm gonna keep.
Sorry, Nathan. Just on that. Do we think that was done because of the whole Leicester situation? You know how they pulled out of the deal with Cody, probably because they were somewhat aware that we were happy to. Dawson wasn't in our plans regardless.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
and because they pulled out of that deal, I wonder if we have done that to sort of get back at them, because obviously otherwise he would be playing for them now.
Well, yeah, I think it's less about getting back and potentially more about protecting yourself from giving an opposition in a relegation fight a benefit. If he goes and we don't get anything in return and we lease him on a free and then he signs for Leicester the next day and he helps keep them up, then that's not good.
The only thing I'm thinking of there is a centre-half partnership of Connor Cody and Craig Dawson, and that would be anyone with an over 34 pace rating on FIFA would be laughing there, wouldn't they? But anyway, I'm gonna move us around a little bit. We're gonna move around the pitch a bit. Ryan Ait-Nouri, I really wanted to talk about him again today. Like I thought against Liverpool at the week, I thought he's brilliant. Yeah. And I think there's sometimes he frustrates us, and you go through games and you think, gosh, he's not switched on at the back stick, and cross is going deep. He seems to always sort of be a bit lazy with certain aspects of a sort of the defensive role that he's got. But he looked like he was playing in his back garden. And I know he plays with that style anyway, but he genuinely ticked every box in the weekend. And I know he's been linked to big clubs, but I just thought he was outstanding. Am I overreacting here?
Sorry, I really do think he's just the mustard. I think it's so good. Like you said, it's the style he plays with. And don't get me wrong, it comes with the downfalls that you've mentioned. Perhaps sometimes he's too casual with it, but just when it comes off, which more often than not it does, the little sort of flicks on the turn, the first touch to beat his man, and then little 1-2s with either Cunha or João Gomes, who those three seem to love sort of that, playing around on that left hand side with a bit of flair. it's so good to watch. And again, obviously, as Chris and I mentioned yesterday, the fact that Salah was only able to score from a penalty when he came up against him, he's just unreal. And I'm going to say something here. This may be taking us off on a tangent. I think losing him could be the biggest loss that we could face in the summer.
Whoa, that's a big one there. We might have to clip that one, mate.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get onto the wingback discussion. A huge loss is going to be Semedo because we're going to lose another captain, and you're going to have to replace him.
I think they're both brilliant, and I think the thing that we've been crying out for with all the different changes that we've had in captaincy and other bits is I don't know, players with the personality to drive teams forwards and consistently create this cohesion within the team. And it feels as though down that left-hand side, now that Gomes has been around a bit, Ait-Nouri's there, Cunha's been there, third season they're playing together? Second season they're playing together, all three of them. We're starting to see this, all the flicks around the corner flag and these 1-2 Joga Bonito, I think they call it. In Brazil. It's just good to watch. And I don't know if I'd agree with the fact that he'd be the biggest loss, but it's just this consistency that we want to build a squad and you want players to stay with us. And it felt like under Nuno, players were staying and there was a long-term plan. And if obviously a player was about to leave, like say when Jota was about to leave, Neto was kind of ready there. Now, because we feel so light, it feels as though, we're in a point where if we lose Ait-Nouri, who do we have coming in? Well, we don't even know a name, really, do we, in that left-back position?
I think two things on that. First of all, obviously depends on the Hugo Bueno situation.
Yep.
The fact that he's out on loan currently, lest we forget
he's an afterthought to me at the minute. You're right.
I know, but that in itself is just criminal. But also, my point was more the fact, he's just so underrated, Ait-Nouri. He's so underrated by, I think, people outside of Wolves. So everyone's already aware of the fact that Cunha's probably going to go in the summer, and we're barely going to get any profit thanks to our stupid release clause from our stupid owners. But people know about that transfer and sort of expect, and they know of the quality of Cunha, whereas Ait-Nouri perhaps slips sort of between the cracks a little bit for those who don't watch him week in, week out. And that's why I say, he'll be the biggest loss, just because neutral fans won't realise sort of how good he is until he plays for their team.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad you mentioned Hugo Bueno because that's what I was waiting to say was he's arguably, if he comes back from that loan, which I mean he will because it's not a loan to buy, then he's an option for that left, at least to be some kind of temporary replacement on that left wing back side. But the only thing that frustrated me at the weekend is he did his best defensive performance in a while, which he always seems to raise his game for Salah defensively.
Yeah.
But there was a bunch of times I will have to say he frustrated me where every time there was so many moments where he had a good moment to beat a man and get a cross in or just take it forward and get near the corner of the penalty area and then cut back and just cut back every time. And I was just just once or twice, just move forward and just whip it in.
So I think my thought on that is that I thought exactly the same thing watching it live. Every time he gets the ball, because we know what he can do, when you see the little glimmers of him doing it with his flicks and taking it past someone, you just want him to do it every time. My thought is that I think he might be just coached to downplay that side of his game a bit more, especially when we don't have a focal number 9 and one that's going to go and attack those balls into the box. That was my only thought on it, because I mean he's not necessarily always whipping balls in when Strand Larsen is playing as well, but I just thought that during the game I was like, surely he's holding back here because we're not expecting Guedes to beat any of their centre halves in the air.
But even then, if it's not just beat your man and get into the box, there was a few moments where it just felt like he had opportunities to drive forward. I'm being picky, I know, but it just felt there was a few moments where an attack was slowed almost to a standstill when he had the impetus, like to drive forward.
Yeah, no, definitely. Before we start wrapping up, I also wanted to mention a couple of other players that I was really happy to see. Actually, I was really happy to see Tommy Doyle get some minutes, and it was really also good to see Pedro Lima come on as well. I think that it's nice to see that Vitor Pereira maybe is looking at his squad a little bit more, thinking of using his players a little bit more. We've had additions, and he's still wanting to use a bit of depth and to use it away at Liverpool. I don't know if we saw this when he originally came in. I don't know if we saw this much rotation. So, if anything, it was just a breath of fresh air to see those two.
Yeah, something else just on that note, again, before we finish up. I know Nathan, Chris and I spoke about this briefly yesterday. I just wanted to ask if either of you guys have seen any updates on Rodrigo Gomes' absence, because I'm still completely unaware of why he was left out of the squad, and I've not seen anyone sort of provide any sort of answer for it just yet.
No, I was I was going to mention that just because Nathan hadn't mentioned it yet. That I still haven't found certain reason for the omission. Maybe we'll find something out in one of the next press conferences, but maybe I've missed it. But it was an odd one for him not to even be on the bench, because he's been one of our best players this season for me whenever he's made an appearance.
Yeah. With those ones, it just, to me, it just screams like there's maybe something personal going on and he needed to take a bit of time. I mean, when it's an injury, it's quite easy for them to just announce that there's something as an injury, right? It's not difficult from a PR perspective, but maybe there's something else going on. Anyway, we hope Rodrigo Gomes is back in the fold soon enough. And for everyone that's listening this straight as it comes out, I hope you have a brilliant end of your Tuesday. But for everyone else out there, we will catch you in the next episode. Take care, guys.
See ya.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.